for the first time in 20 years, we could see the end of the Republican Party dominance over the mayor's office. But what will not come to an end is the dominance of Wall Street. It depends on what we do, many of us in this room and those outside this room, building an uncompromising militant struggle. Bloomberg, in the face of an economic crisis and slow down a weak recovery, who happens to be the 7th richest man in the country, is presiding over massive cuts to social services, the massive increase of charter and privatization over our schools, and his own private army, NYPD, who's been on the rampage and who have just recently occupied East Flatbush following the death of Kamani Kiki Gray.
I work as a community labor organizer for New York Communities for Change. It's a community-based organization currently working to organize low-wage, low-income neighborhoods throughout the city. Over the last 2 years, around 400 workers have successfully organized, are now currently unionized, and enjoy a contract that provides them with basic benefits, paid sick days, paid vacation days, raises, job security. And when their struggles are supported by the community at large, by unions, by community-based organizations, and when the very people that are present in this room accompany them day in and day out, walk hand in hand with them, and when the people in this room make their individual talents and knowledge available and make themselves useful to these communities in their struggles, I think that's where we have the seeds for an alternative society.
Thank you all for being here, as Jesse said, on a Wednesday evening. And thanks to the New York City Socialist Alternative Branch for organizing this. And thank you to our beautiful speakers. I think we got a good taste of, what's inspiring in terms of what could be and what already is being done. And I think there has to be a marriage of the two. There is no question that Lucas is absolutely correct, that the kind of movement that he is helping build, organizing low-wage workers, is very much integral to, if you want to think about, sowing the seeds for a future society. There's no question that that is a very, very important part of it. But I wanted to start by giving you all a background of, where I come from. I mean, I originally come from India, of course, but this time I'm coming to you from Seattle. And as Jesse mentioned, Socialist Alternative ran a campaign for the State House of Representatives in Washington from a small district in Seattle, and we ran against the Speaker of the House, who by all accounts is the most powerful legislator in the state. He controls the purse strings of every single policy that is carried out in the state, and we know from talking to other rank and file members of the Democratic Party that nothing goes past, nothing gets passed unless he wants it to pass. And so I think we really have to recognize how much of a huge step forward this has been for the left in general, and also draw out lessons in terms of how can a grassroots campaign succeed in such an enormous and sort of trailblazing manner. I think we also have to completely vanquish this really defeatist and demoralized idea that we have in the left and we've had in the past, that if you can't win the first time you run or the first few times you run, then isn't that a waste of resources? Why don't we take all these resources, in terms of people, human power and money and financial contributions, and try to back left-leaning Democratic Party candidates? And I think we have to argue very strenuously against that too. Yes, you have to start somewhere, and yes, you may not technically win, but if you do things right, if you build an actual movement from the grassroots, if you really empower people, people like ourselves, into actually, having a vision for the future, then it can be done. But we also have to be willing to embrace the tremendous amount of hard work that goes along with it. And I think Lucas and the people who are working with him are an excellent example of what we are talking about. This takes hard work, my brothers and sisters. This is not going to come easy. And the simple reason is that the corridors of power and the streets, not just Wall Street, are controlled by Wall Street, by the capitalist system, and by their representatives, be they Democratic Party elite or Republican Party elite. And if we as the working class and ordinary people and students and young people looking for a different kind of society, if we are to seize power from that, if we are to carry out a vision in our own right, then it will require challenging that existing power structure, and that's not going to come easy. So we have to present inspiring stories on how this can be done, and we also have to present strategies for organization and tactics for what can be done. Capitalism has no permanent solution for the problems that it creates itself, and here we are in the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and you don't have to be an economist to have a sense of how deep this crisis is. Entire cities like Detroit are being decimated, but look how stark it is in New York City. A similar inequality to Bolivia. I mean, these are serious social and economic problems we are discussing here. This is, we have a lot of work to do. And so, just to explain why we ran this campaign, I mean, I'll be honest with you, we're not politicians. Yes, I was the candidate, but I'm not a politician in the sense that I'm not trying to build a personal career for myself, and nobody in Socialist Alternative is trying to do that. We're socialists, we're activists, and electoral campaigns in a completely rigged system are not the most favorable terrain for activists. That's true, we accept that. But at the same time, we also have to recognize the value of thinking through the most important question. The most important question is not what seems morally, wonderful to us, should we do movements or should we do elections, but understand what is the most effective tactic in a given period to actually bring all the people who are politically questioning the system and questioning the situation, how can we engage them? So in a year when activist energy and people's political attention was consumed by this series of sham debates, Socialist Alternative put forward another vision of what electoral politics and grassroots politics could look like. And so while everybody was watching those meaningless debates, we were debating our opponent in Seattle, where they tried their best to not have a debate. In fact, it was a good experience for me, because when we went to the candidate forums, you could tell that the Democratic Party, bigwigs, who once they get into office, they're permanently lodged in there. They come to these candidate forum debates and they shake everyone's hand and they make nice talk and they think that's what it's going to be, and which it is, and that's the point. Unless a grassroots campaign, or determined and energetic campaign like Socialist Alternative was going to be there was no question of a real debate. We forced that debate on them. It's not like they were welcoming that debate. It was we forced that debate on them despite their resistance, and that's what really shook Seattle politics to a great degree there. That's where all these votes come from. I mean, I don't think all of the people who voted and all of the people who got engaged in the campaign are necessarily clear about our ideas on socialism, but they're very clear about the program that we had, and that's what Algier was talking about. Our idea, our goal in having electoral campaigns and participating in electoral campaigns is from that standpoint, that we need mass movements, we need mass social movements to challenge this kind of devastating, sort of insane economic order. But in order to do that, we need a political voice, and we need to fight this corporate agenda not only on the streets, but we need to take over the space in City Hall and in the state capitol and so on. Things are not working for most of us, the 99%, so to say, under this regime, and the curiosity for other alternatives for organizing society are there. If you look at opinion polls, more and more people are open to ideas of socialism, and especially if you look at young people, a majority of them are open to socialist ideas. So, I think that what it shows is that there's a huge opening for the left, and it's not just for socialists. And so, one of the things we did after we got our election results in November, and we were looking forward to the next year, we put out a call for a slate of candidates in the same spirit that Algier said. Imagine what would happen. Imagine how the political arena would be transformed if it wasn't just one or two or three candidates, if it wasn't just socialist alternative engaging in this, but if broader left forces engage in this with the understanding that if we want any political voice for ourselves, we have to create it for ourselves, and we cannot rely on the Democratic Party, regardless of how many well-meaning people there are within that framework. Pole of attraction that is going to rally around people who are mad as hell about things, but don't know where to go. We have to do that. The left owes this to, especially the younger generation. We owe this. We need to bring this together. And there is no question. I mean, I'm going to end on this point about what Lucas said. Organizing low-wage workers and organizing workers in different sectors in order to actually take power in their workplace is absolutely important. We have to win reforms, and the process of fighting for reforms is very educational. Often you will hear liberals saying, we need education. The reason things are not changing and people are not fighting back is we need education. And they're absolutely correct. But that education does not come by enrolling into a master's program. That education comes from fighting on the streets, fighting for something you want for yourself and your people. And that's when you realize how much the system, how much the deck is stacked against you. So the fight for any reform, whether it's single-payer healthcare or a unionizing drive, really shows people in a very real way that this is what is required to fight back. This is what we need to do. And we need to be serious about building solidarity. We need to be serious about understanding that these guys at the top are not on our side. They're against us, and we better realize this. But the process of fighting for reforms is also empowering in different ways because, as it was mentioned earlier, it opens up people's eyes to what else could be possible.